Yo, welcome to episode 4 of Sitting In. Today we've got Josh Meader on the podcast, and Josh is a guitarist from Australia, and he sounds a little bit like this. Pretty cool, right? Anyway, the world is a bit crazy right now. I hope you're all staying safe and helping those in need if you are able to. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Josh onto the podcast, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Sweet. What's up, Josh? How you doing?
Hey man, how you going? I'm good.
Good, thanks. Yeah. So, thanks for being on the podcast.
No worries. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because I know this is our second time trying to schedule this chat now because of the time difference. It's just insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're like literally on the other end of the world right now, and it's pretty cool that we can connect through this camera thing and this setup. It's cool. So yeah, I'm excited to chat to you. So how's everything going with you, man?
Yeah, really good, man. Really good. Yeah, as I was saying before, I just finished uni, so I'm having a couple months off, and it was a pretty hectic year. I did honours, so it was a lot of writing and two recitals instead of just the one, and yeah, organising a lot of music, and yeah, it was good.
Sweet, man. That's an exciting place to be. I remember when I finished my degree, and it was such a weight off my back. Like I was like, man, I can finally actually do music now, because like it was such a great experience. But I think you pointed on something that I particularly don't enjoy that much, and it's like all the writing. It's like I'd rather just like shed and like get a degree for that somehow, but doesn't quite work like that. But yeah, so. Who is Josh Meader? Why don't you introduce yourself to the people? What do you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a predominantly jazz guitarist, based currently in Sydney, and I've been playing for 15 years now, I think. I started when I was 7 years old, and kind of went through the whole phase of blues and rock, then metal, kind of shred stuff, and then ultimately landed upon jazz maybe at 12 or 13. It's hard to remember exactly when I kind of discovered it, but yeah, it was around that kind of early high school age. And then just absorbed it and loved it, and tried to learn as much as I could during those years.
Nice. Sweet. What I'm always interested when people say that they got into jazz, like I guess before the age I got into it, because I got into it when I was like 17 or 18, man.
Yeah, right.
So it's like I'm always super interested. It's like, what got you into jazz at 12-year-old? Because when I was 12, I had long hair and listened to like heavy metal pretty much. And it's like, I didn't really know anything further than that. And it's funny because my dad was a jazz drummer. Yeah. And he introduced me to jazz when I was starting to play guitar around the age of 12. And I was like, I really respect you, Dad, but this just sounds like nonsense to me. And it genuinely did. I remember it. And I could probably find a record that he let me hear as well. And times have changed for sure. But I'm interested in like what's like ignited the interest in jazz for you at 12 years old?
Well, similarly, I think it was my dad really, because he's a jazz double bass player, and he went to the conservatorium here as well. And then moved to Europe, which it was originally from. Born in Amsterdam, and moved to Australia when I was 11 because my parents were over there. My dad was a gypsy jazz double bass player, so he had a gypsy jazz trio that was touring all around Europe and the world and stuff. And I guess that was my first introduction to it. And he used to play me records. Well, there was always kind of jazz going on and around the house with Coltrane, and Keith Jarrett is my dad's number one artist basically. So he was always on. And who else? A couple European guitarists, one called Borelli Legrand and another called Sylvain Luc. and they had a couple duo albums that my dad would always play as well. So that was, I guess, my whole first interaction with jazz. And then, but yeah, as kind of similarly to you, I didn't understand it at all, and it would kind of just fly over my head. I could appreciate like the technicality of it, because coming from like a shred background, I was pretty impressed by that. And always, my dad always taught me improvising kind of first, and like that was the first introduction to music. It was through improvising, like just blues stuff.
Wow, awesome.
So I really respected how crazy their improvisation skills were. I guess that's probably the biggest turning point. I just was so astounded by how they could improvise those incredible lines and connect chords and all that stuff.
So do you think that the music you were introduced to, particularly the artists, were definitely much more the kind of inspiration than the genre itself? Because
definitely.
For example, like I'm pretty sure if my dad let me hear Pat Martino on Sunny as the first jazz thing I heard, I'm pretty sure I could have got into it, but maybe he just let me hear something that was a bit too hard, because like, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that makes heaps of sense, man. I guess my dad told me like it was jazz, but it was definitely, more about the artists. Like Borelli Legrand and Sylvain Luc were the two biggest inspirations, coming from like a guitar point of view. And then also he basically gave me a bunch of tracks, MP3s on like an iPod or something, for me to just check out and listen to. I didn't probably check them out until maybe 12 or 13, but they were there, and I could just kind of go to them if I wanted to explore it. And another one was Miles Davis and the what's it called, the album with So What and stuff on it. Of course, kind of blue. Yeah. And just Keith Jarrett as well. It took me a while to understand Keith Jarrett. Like that was probably the toughest one for me to hear, especially his improvisation. For some reason, I can't remember. Yeah, I don't know why, but it was all about the artist really, rather than the style.
Wow, cool. That's tons of interesting stuff I never knew about you. So fast forward quite a while. So you were born in Amsterdam, am I right?
Yeah.
So what age were you in Amsterdam when you started playing?
I was 7 over there, 7.5. And the reason I started playing was because my dad kind of left the Gypsy Jazz Trio and then started teaching kind of full time. And he took on my best friend as a guitar student. And I was like, oh, I kind of want to do that too, to be like my friend. And then my dad was like, well, if you're going to do it, we're going to do it seriously. And he bought me a guitar when I was 4 years old. But I just strummed around with it. I didn't really take to it, I don't think. There's footage of me just like whacking it and jumping around the room, but not really playing seriously. And then, so at 7.5, he was like, okay, if you're going to do it, I'm going to teach you every day and give you a lesson before school. So it was kind of like wake up an hour before school started, and we did an hour, and then school was so close, like it was a 2-minute walk or something, being in Amsterdam. That was like a real cool thing. And then I would just have like daily lessons with him, and he'd sit with me as well, and he'd kind of learn stuff the night before and then show me and run through technical exercises with me, and that was huge, absolutely huge, I reckon.
Yes, awesome. So was your dad teaching you while he played bass, or was he picking up the guitar to teach you it?
Oh, he was he's originally a guitarist, so he was a kind of rock shred guitarist from here, so from Sydney, and he was playing in a bunch of bands kind of my age now, and then eventually transitioned to jazz. I can't remember what age, and then picked up the double bass, but I can't remember what age it was. But so he had a definite like guitar background, so.
Nice. Well, that's cool stuff, man. I think one thing that is quite cool to hear is that it was more about the improvisation than necessarily the implications of the genre itself, even though improvisation is one of the largest ones. So can you remember your first experience improvising and how that felt?
Not really. I'm gonna be honest, man. I'm not really.
All right.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. No, I don't. I don't think so. I
Right.
think.
Because I remember. Sorry, and you go.
No, you go, Ben. Yeah, I was better. Yeah, go off somewhere else.
All right, I was saying, because I do remember my first experience,
Yeah,
and it was
really.
like magic, and it was
Oh wow.
essentially it's because I'd got a guitar for Christmas, and I'd practiced the whole summer just on my own, like through YouTube and
Oh
stuff,
great, man. Yeah.
and somehow I managed to learn the solo to "Sweet Child of Mine," which was like ridiculous considering how little I'd actually play guitar,
Oh
but
yeah.
I couldn't actually play it in time. I thought I could, but
Mm.
anyway, that was my thing. And so then I got back to school, and the teacher was like, "Oh, we need to get you guitar lessons because they were free at school. We got free education in our instruments.
Oh man.
It's different now. I don't know what's like for you guys, but
Yeah, we definitely don't get free tuition. That's awesome that they had that.
yeah, I mean they've stopped it now, unfortunately. But yeah, we got free tuition, and what happened was I told the guitar teacher, I was like, "Yeah, so I've learnt Sweet Child of Mine," and he was like, "Oh, cool. Well, let's start with that."
Mm.
And it was the first time I'd ever played it like with another person. I was so bad. I didn't know how to play with someone else.
Yeah, yeah.
My timing was way out, and anyway,
Yeah, well, man,
we ended up being like, sorry.
that's cool. That's so cool.
Yeah. Well, it's cool enough, but the way that I got into improvisation through that was that we kind of put that tune on the back burner for a while, and he taught me some things like help me actually get playing in time. And then maybe, I don't know, say 4 months later, we're like, all right, cool, let's revisit the Sweet Child of Mine solo. And he was like, well, you should probably try learning the scale that they use in the solo. And it was like mostly just the pentatonic scale, minor scale. And he taught me that. And he's like, all right, cool. So I'm going to play some chords. And he played like an E blues. And I just played around the pentatonic scale. And I was just like, whoa, like we just made that up right now. Like I'm just playing these notes, and it
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
sucked, but it was that sort of like magic moment of like spontaneous musical creation that was like, oh wow, I didn't have to plan anything. It was like just me. But then I kind of just ignored it for for years. I mean, I was always like jamming stuff, but then it wasn't until I came back to going to college and like really started to get into kind of blues and funk and infusion and eventually jazz that I kind of continued to pursue improvisation. But yeah, I was just interested if you could remember that first moment because it was it's so vivid for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. You remember it, man. I wish I did, but yeah, I have nothing. Yeah.
Cool. So fast forward to now, you have just finished your degree, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So where did you study? What was the college called?
It's the Sydney Conservatorium of Music, and I guess it's the main music college in Sydney, at least. Yeah, and it was really good, really good.
Yeah. Can you tell me a bit about your college? Sorry?
It's right next to the Opera House, actually, so that gives you kind of visualization. It's very close to it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. So can you tell me a bit about your college kind of situation, your life? Like what classes did you take? How long did you study for? You know, sell the course to me right now.
Yeah, I will. I sure will, man. So it was 4 years, and I almost saw it as like two chunks. Like the first and second year were very organized, and all the classes were planned and set already within your curriculum, and they included like different things like jazz history and a kind of like an ear training class, and then a harmony and arranging class as well. So those were more like the kind of written subjects, and then you had your performance ones, which were small ensemble, large ensemble, like a big band, and then an improvisation class. So that's basically what first and second year was for me, all those classes, and that didn't really change. But then what I preferred, which was third and fourth year, which is where you could kind of go off and do your own thing, and it was much less work, which kind of just let me do my own thing, and that's when I really got into writing music, which was probably the biggest thing for me that I got out of like college, like actually writing tunes, I reckon. Yeah.
Cool. Nice. So can you tell me a bit about like how you're because I guess you got some sort of like maybe one-to-one or group kind of guitar or jazz lesson or something like that. How did that work? Yo, sorry for interrupting. I'll just be 1 minute. If you're receiving value from this podcast, please consider supporting me by going to teespring.com/sitting-in-podcast, where you can buy some nice merch. And yeah, cheers.
Yeah, so that was part of it as well, and they kind of have a set teacher for all first year students that go to the con. Cool. Yeah, an awesome guitarist called Steve Bryan here in Sydney. He's a really awesome bebop guitarist, and yeah, he was really sick, and he kind of like the lessons were really structured like kind of bebop language and tune learning. So we kind of learned tunes on the spot in the class, and he'd recommend trying to memorize the chord progression, obviously, and so that was cool. So we did maybe like 2 or 3 tunes a lesson, so it was really quick. You had to be kind of quick at memorizing the chords, and so that was really good practice, actually. Yeah, I really liked those lessons. And then second year, I had another guitarist from Sydney called Carl Dewhurst. He's awesome as well. And his lessons, he specializes in a lot of odd time stuff. He does guitar, but he also is a very good drummer, and he studies with one of the main kind of drum teachers in Sydney called Simon Barker, and
cool.
And he has a huge kind of knowledge about traditional Korean music, and kind of brings that into jazz and combines it, and
nice.
It influences his whole process basically, and a lot of odd time stuff comes out of that. So that's when I was first introduced to that, because I couldn't play odd time for shit in first year, almost the second year. It took me a while. I couldn't fathom how someone's licks could work in 4/4, and then somehow I thought you had to learn a whole new set of licks for 5/4, for 7/4, because like all the harmonic and rhythmic cadences would be thrown out. Yeah. So that's what I originally thought, and I just couldn't play it at all. It was absolutely hopeless. But so Carl Dewhurst was the first one to introduce me to kind of a clave system, and using short and long rhythms like 2s and 3s or 1s and 2s to break up like a 5/4 bar or a 7/4 bar, and practice different subdivisions and pulses underneath like different rhythms and stuff. And that just opened the door completely to playing over odd tempo stuff. So that was huge that whole year with Carl Dewhurst. And the guitar I'm playing now, the AS200, was his one as well. So at the end of the year, he was like, "Oh, Josh, I know you were really interested in this guitar. I'm going to sell it. Do you want it for like a pretty awesome price?" And I was, 100% yes.
Oh, wow, that's cool. That's a really cool thing to take away, like from
definitely
a set of lessons from someone that you kind of respect.
Mm.
Sometimes I have this thing where I almost don't want to play other people's instruments in case I want it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's kind of weird. It's like this ignorance, because it's like I have my set of instruments and I know that I like them. Yeah. And sometimes, like, you know, if I take a lesson with someone or I'm jamming with someone and they have a really nice guitar, I'm like, sometimes just not interested in like even touching it, because I'll probably want it.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if it's because they've played it, you know, like Kurt Rosenwinkel could play a bloody like Squire guitar, and I'd be like, you know what, Squire's pretty cool now.
Yeah, Squire's the guitar for me.
Yeah, but going backwards a little bit to your first 2 years, I think it was.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a bit about the lessons where you would have to do like say 3 tunes, and was that like an hour?
Yeah, there were hour lessons.
Yeah, so what was that situation? Was it like he would play the tune, or you'd just get the lead sheet, and it was... What was that experience like? Because it sounds pretty, like, quite a big thing to do in such a short period of time.
I guess I would never learn the melodies. Like, he would always just come into the lesson and be like, "Oh, I've been jamming on this tune." He'd maybe play me a clip of it online, like his favorite version that he was checking out that week. And then he'd kind of play me the chords and go through each bar, and there was no chord charts or anything from memory. it was all just he kind of played it to me, and then after that we'd play the chords together a couple times until I got it in my head. Then he'd play the melody over it, and then we just kind of jam and solo and trade and
Cool.
yeah, we did that over a couple of tunes each lesson. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
And so it was mostly like I guess oral skills then, like how you can hear the chord changes.
Yeah.
It wasn't like here's a lead sheet, like let's make sense out of that.
No, it wasn't any of that. It was really about playing, which was awesome. And as soon as second year started, like it was like a huge hole kind of just came into my like course, because I didn't have that anymore. Like I didn't have that weekly kind of just sitting with another guitarist jamming out tunes each week, which was so awesome. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that I do miss from being in the college environment is like, it's not the accountability, but it's like just having people like always, like mentors, you know, like having access to them like every day, I guess, or every college day. And I think that's something I found sort of hard to keep up since I finished, is like just remembering to like take lessons every now and then and like learn from other people, because you know there's everything you want to learn you can chuck on a record and learn it, like you're kind of in that position, but just having that sort of like hour or whatever it may be a week is like, oh man, that's what I miss the most, I think. What do you think you're gonna miss the most
I reckon
from like
that
this last
having that weekly connection with another muso that you really respect and just want to get everything they learn from. And I guess each week you have an opportunity to chip away at that, and
Nice, cool. So you've just finished your degree. Congratulations! It's good times ahead, I'm sure. But what's on the cards for 2020? Because we've just entered a new year. You've finished your degree. Like you must be pretty stoked to get going.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. So I guess first off, I'm going to NAMM in a week and a half or 2 weeks, which is going to be my first time in the States, let alone a big convention like that, which is pretty exciting. So that's going to be awesome. Really keen for that.
Have you are you hooked up with any like companies or anybody who's going?
No.
Or are you just kind of going as a solo?
Yeah, just a solo. I mean, I know people that are going to be there, like the main guitar shop that's near me, that I kind of did work experience there for a while, and I know the dudes very well. I bought numerous guitars and pedals and amps.
Nice.
We're good friends, and so they're going as a group. They're all going.
Awesome.
So I'll know them there, and then one of my students, regular students here in Sydney, his dad's kind of hooked me up with like an artist pass from someone, so that's cool. That's very handy. And I just know a couple people that I know are going to be like in the booths and kind of playing and stuff. So it should be.
Yeah,
I
hope you have a fun time at that. I think I've been so close to actually like going to NAMM as well, but I've never been. And I was like, it was this time last year. I was like, honestly, about a day away from just booking flights to LA, and because I've got friends over there, and like a few people had said, "Oh, you can crash at mine." I was like, "Oh, nice." But then I just decided that it wasn't the right kind of thing for me at that time. But yeah, man. After the chat, remind me that you're going to NAMM, because it'd be good to try and hook you up with some people. If you're interested, maybe meet some kind of cool people. But so NAMM, what's happening after that?
So that's first, and then basically throughout the con I mentioned like kind of writing and writing my own tunes, so that formed like a large part of my thesis and my final recital, or final two recitals really, in the last year, because I've been with a group of musos all my age for, I guess the longest is 8 years, no 10 years. So the drummer, one of my best friends, Alistair Hayes is his name. We met in first year at high school, and we've been all the way through high school and then the con as well together. So him, and then piano player called Matt Harris, a bass player called Oscar Peterson. if you would believe it. And then a saxophone player called Zach Olson. And I met the other guys kind of a few years later, but during high school as well, during kind of outer curriculum bands, outer school bands. And yeah, and then we all did the con together same year, except for the piano player, he's a year below. But so I always rided with those guys in mind, so they were kind of my band. And yeah, I would write the tunes for that kind of quintet, like jazz quintet, kind of Kurt Rosenwinkel style sound. So I would really love to record us kind of this year, early this year, if I can. So I'm thinking maybe end of February, early March.
Nice.
But the only...
That's pretty soon.
Yeah. I mean, all the tunes are kind of ready to go, and we've rehearsed them a bunch because they were all just performed during my recital, so they've had a lot of rehearsal.
Cool.
Just to get them up. But the only hiccup is the piano player Matt Harris. He's doing a semester at UCLA right now, basically. So he's over there. So he won't be back until July. And I really want to get it done sooner rather than later. Just kind of yeah. So we'll see.
Ah, that's funny. We're almost in a similar position because I'm working with my band on my project just now, and the keyboard player, funny enough, is actually going to be in Sydney from February till nearly April.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, our keyboard player's leaving us, but
Exactly.
yeah, no, that's cool, man. Nice. So that's obviously quite a big deal. Is that your first record as yourself, or
Yeah.
do you have other things out?
I have a few things with my dad because we do a guitar duo thing together.
Oh, wow.
And we've been playing
Nice.
together maybe 7 or 8 years, just doing standards and popular tunes in kind of a jazz way. Similar, I guess, but really the Glenn Sylvan Luke is our main inspiration, but just less
Nice.
crazy because they're absolute freaks. So
I think no, you can play those things, man. Some of the stuff you play is just insane. Like, I'm always just blown away by your playing, man. Like, seriously. And whenever I share it, like, people are always commenting or like, "Oh my god, like this guy's a monster." But not like to blow steam up your ass or anything. I'm just being honest.
thanks so much.
And yeah, like you've obviously touched on your mentors at college and your dad as being kind of a big role model, but who are some of your major inspirations outside of that kind of Sydney bubble?
Outside the Sydney bubble, sorry. So like artists.
Yeah, just I guess any time period, just your musicians who have had maybe the biggest impact on you.
Yeah, so I reckon I could say the number one person as far as improvisation and one of the main kind of pulls to jazz was Chris Potter, I'd say.
Cool.
Like he's probably the biggest one. I remember listening to him kind of, first year of high school. I probably, like the first song I ever heard from him was the solo he did on West of Hollywood, I think is the tune.
Right.
The Steely Dan tune. And he has like a 4-minute outro solo that absolutely like blew my 12-year-old mind and shattered it because it's just I could not fathom how anybody could improvise at that level.
Can you just remind me what that track's called?
Yeah, sure, man.
listen to it.
It's the track is West of Hollywood, I believe. Yeah, Steely Dan tune. It's a killer tune.
Is it
as well.
Steely Dan or is it Chris Potter playing that tune?
It's Steely Dan. Yeah, it's Steely Dan.
Oh, right. I
and
didn't
then-
know he actually played with them.
Yeah,
Wow.
he played them for a couple albums, which
Oh, wow.
and
Right.
they're all awesome. They're so good.
Sweet. I'm going to check that out. Nice one.
Yeah.
I think the first time I listened to Chris Potter, it was something, oh man, it was one of his albums that has like maybe a moon on the album art or something like that, or a
Okay.
sun and a moon, or
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool. I've not actually checked out his stuff too much. But anyway, sorry for interrupting.
That tune just rips so hard, and the solo is phenomenal. Yeah,
Awesome.
I couldn't believe it the first time I heard it, and coming straight from like I guess the transitioning artist between shred and jazz was Guthrie Govan.
Same here.
Yeah, he was absolutely huge as well for those couple of years there.
Yeah, are there any particular pieces by him that kind of drew you in? Because there's one in particular for me that I was like, oh wow.
Okay, I think the first one I heard was probably Fives. That recording on YouTube.
Cool.
That was probably the first one I heard, but my favorite one was always Waves.
Right.
And that kind of drew me into the whole album, and yeah, I love all the tracks on the album, to be honest, but Waves is probably the standout for me.
Nice. Yeah, for me it was the tune Wonderful Slippery Thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like the funkiness of it. It was as soon as he started playing like it was the part he goes in like just straight eighths and he's like just playing all these bebop lines. And I was like, what the, like I'd never heard anything like that before.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy's playing like jazzy things, for lack of a better term, over like funk. And I was like, I play funk, I can do that. And I was just like, man, that's so cool. And that led me into, you know, asking my teacher like, what's happening here? And so we kind of looked over that, and it was, yeah, that was like a very kind of important 4-bar section or something for me in my development. Just that, like hearing how someone plays over changes really was my introduction to, I guess in a way, jazz. But yeah, Waves is also killer though.
Yeah, I think it was really like the chromaticism that like expanded. Like, yeah, I was just like, oh, what the hell? How do you even do that? Like putting chromatic notes that are outside the key but make them sound inside, because you're like landing the nice notes on the good beats and stuff. Yeah, I was like, whoa, what the hell? How do you do that? And then and then West of Hollywood was always playing. I can remember like riding my bike to high school and just blasting that non-stop for 40 minutes while I was riding to high school.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I wish I'd gotten into music like that when I was 14 or whatever age you are. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man, it's such a good track. I've wanted to transcribe the full solo, but I guess I know it so well. Yeah, that I don't. Yeah, I don't need to.
I know what you mean. Yeah. So, any other inspirations you want to touch on, or?
I guess Guthrie Govan and Chris Potter, they're probably the two that got me into jazz. And then once I was into jazz, I loved Coltrane, and Keith Jarrett was a huge one. Miles Davis as well. Cannonball.
Right.
Cannonball, absolutely love all his stuff. And I guess those are the main ones. And then branched off and checked out everyone, of course. And
yeah, nice. So have you found out any artists in 2019 that are kind of new for you? Then you're like, oh yeah, nice.
I don't know, man. I've been on a pretty like obscure path for the past like 6 months with like music listening, and it's all been more like hip hop and trap music, which is kind of odd.
Oh, right.
That's like all I've been kind of checking out for the past 6 months, I reckon.
That's interesting. What drew you to that?
I think I don't know, man. I have no idea. But like if I had to guess, it would be like just the rhythmic aspects of it. Especially artists that can actually rap incredibly well, like Logic and I guess Eminem as well.
I saw Logic live.
Oh, really, man? Fuck, how was that?
Yeah. All right, I'm going to be honest. The worst gig of my life.
Oh, shit, dude.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Crushing.
Like, I know. He's like, some of his stuff is really great, but I'm not sure if it's because he was at the end of a tour. Like, I think it was the last date, and he maybe had like a sore throat or something, but he'd honestly do like 16 bars and then start being like, Scotland, are you hype? And like do that for like 5 minutes. And then he'd like do another like honestly 16 bars, and it's like, are you tired or something, man? It was like, I left early actually. It's the only gig I've ever left early. It was just frustrating, man.
What are you doing?
And also I know, but no, that's cool, because I remember when I was about 9, I was really into Eminem. And so the rhythmical aspect of that stayed in me until now. And I remember one day, you know, because my brother's really into hip hop, him being over and just playing some tracks, and I drew a line between the rhythmic kind of phrasing in rap music and how you can improvise, and that was quite a kind of light bulb moment for me. I was like, oh yeah, cool, like, cause like the way Eminem uses like 6 tuplets and 16th notes is like, it's easily transferred into like playing any other instrument. And so I think I can understand how you've managed to get there, but I also think that it's so or at least it has been so hip to like kind of check out Dilla and all that stuff
Yeah.
lately. At least in the last like 4 years, I think it's become quite mainstream in a way.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
for sure.
So yeah, and I've heard you playing over some of that stuff as well. I think
Yeah,
you've
the
uploaded
Slum
some
Village
videos.
stuff is amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess like Robert Glasper ties into that as well as an artist that bridges that and kind of like the modern version, and taking it to new levels. And he's got the awesome band August Green with like Common and stuff, like Robert Glasper.
Yeah.
Common, they're sick. And
Nice.
So I've been just checking out heaps of that stuff recently.
Nice. So obviously you've been playing guitar since you were around 5, 4, 7. What age did you actually start?
7.5.
7.
It was really
Right, but you've had a guitar in the house since you were like 4, right?
Yeah.
So it's been on your radar for nearly all your life, right? What
Yeah.
age are you now, Josh?
Sorry, man.
What age are you now?
I'm 23. Just turned 23.
23, cool.
Mm.
So as someone sitting where they are at 23, you must have practiced your ass off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure we can all definitely hear that. This is a very kind of large topic, and kind of go as far with it as you want, but throughout these however many years you've been playing, I can't do the quick maths, but what has been, I'm guessing this has changed quite a lot, but your approach to practice, where is it at right now?
Yeah, okay, man. So at the moment, I almost have different categories in my mind, like different routines I can access if I want to do a certain thing or like improve a certain thing.
Cool.
So I guess they are like a technical thing, like a technical set of exercises, routines, and categories related. It's all related to right hand, really. Like I just break up technique into right hand. I don't really think about the left hand too much. And it's always been like that. I mean, I always dimmed the computer screen down to 0, so it was just black, so I could get a reflection of my right hand, and then I'd sit so my right hand was in the middle of the screen, and I could see how it was looking, and I just looked at that, and I split it up into 4 techniques, I guess. So it's like economy or sweeping, alternate, legato, like a kind of jazz type of legato that Schofield and Pat Metheny use, and an incredible jazz guitarist here in Australia called James Muller, if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. He was a huge inspiration as well throughout.
Has he not played with, I'm sure I've heard him play with Kreisberg somewhere, no?
I don't think so.
Like maybe just on YouTube or something, no?
Maybe.
Or maybe it's someone else I'm thinking about.
Maybe in recent years. I don't think so though, man. Yeah, it might be someone else. He's a beast though. Yeah, I definitely recommend checking him out. And anybody listening is ridiculous. So it was that legato style, and then the last one was kind of like an off topic version of alternate picking, which is like an inside picking. So I just focus on the inside stroke between changing strings. So you know how alternate picking, you can slam it on the down stroke, when you change strings, and it feels really natural. But my inside pick always felt wrong and really awkward. So I spent a lot of time just isolating that little portion. So it was just all about the inside stroke and just jumping between 3rd and 4th string basically, but on the inside plane.
And are you playing lines while you do that, or are you just focusing on right hand? Left hand could chop it off?
Well, I guess I'm making up exercises, fingering exercises to do it. So just a minor third if I wanted to do that inside one. So just a minor third all the way up the neck. I might do 6 in a row.
So on the D and
down.
G strings, you say?
Yeah, D and G string, yeah.
So are you downstroking the flat third, upstroking the root?
Exactly, yeah. And just that over and over again. Yeah, so repeating that motion. And I did heaps of that because it just felt so awkward for me. I guess it's still in a way it still does, but I've gotten used to it and worked around it. But it might just be the way I pick, because it's kind of weird. I hold it with those fingers, and then my pinky sticks out like that.
3 things like that?
Yeah, exactly like that, man. Yeah, that's it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's
Right, because I know Mike Moreno does, I think, the two middle fingers and keeps like nearly these
He
these
does the
fingers
fucking
nearly
rock.
free.
Yeah, and that was just shown to me by my dad, and I just went with it. Um,
Yeah.
and it feels completely natural now. I guess like when I was growing up, I always wanted to switch to the Guthrie way of picking, which was like holding it like that.
Yeah, that's how I hold it.
Yeah, and I was just like, I wish I could switch, but then I'd get worried because I was like, all my progress will be lost if I just switch now. And it was maybe like when I was 13 or 14, and I just couldn't imagine changing.
Do you hybrid pick a lot?
Not at all, no. I can't
Because
I
I think I quite like hybrid picking, and especially when I'm like, instead of just dropping the pick, say I'm like comping in sort of jazz, it's like I quite like the chords to be sometimes quite blocky.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I'm not having to strum down. It's like every note comes out at once, quite percussive. So I just pick usually the lowest note, and then I've got all these fingers free for the other notes.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas if I held it with 3 fingers, I'd find it impossible to like kind of hybrid pick like that. Like that'd be.
Yeah, exactly. I switch between the way I pick lines and then the way I pick chords. So I do the same approach to you with the chords with the fingers. Because, I prefer that. Like, the strum sound of chords sounds whack, unless you're doing, like, a rhythmic thing, I reckon. So I kind of switch. So I've had to, like, figure out, like, a quick switching mechanism, I guess, with my right hand. And then the other one is, like, when you want to use all 4 fingers or all 5 fingers to pluck a chord, like a 5-note chord. So it's, like, I have 3 different picking variants. Right. That I try and switch between. And like the 5-1 is like slipping the pick in between like the 2 fingers there, and then back there for chords, and then back there for lines, chords, 5-note chords. Yeah.
Right. So that seems like something you've really like considered. Is it because there's been like maybe compositions or pieces or lines or transcriptions, projects of some sort that have demanded that technique out of you, or are you just naturally curious?
No, it's definitely like I wanted to emulate a Borelli Legrand chord that has 5 notes, so I need to play it somehow using the pick and then quickly jump to a line. So I have to switch them up, and yeah.
That's cool, man. That sounds like a very like a lot of like different things you can call upon just for your technique.
Yeah.
So how does that work for you? Is it like you'll sit down in the evening or morning, whenever you're going to practice, and is it like you just play and see what needs to be worked on, or do you have like each week, each day, some sort of like schedule?
I guess like a couple years ago when I was kind of doing that routine every day, so I'd do maybe 2 of them in the morning or something before school, or 3 of them, how much time I had, and then I kind of save transcription for the middle of the day, so during school, so I'd like lunch break or recess or whatever when I got home, and then the evening would be more kind of technical stuff, and I'd finish off the rest. And so I did all of high school using that kind of method. It was really all technical stuff, and then transcribing was my way to learn new language and new songs, and how to improvise as well, I guess.
So would you say that your practice was largely split into just 2 sections, technique and transcription?
Exactly, man. Yeah, I reckon.
Nice.
Yeah. And transcription was huge because I didn't have a teacher throughout high school, so it was the only way I was going to learn new stuff. So I remember in maybe second year of high school, I figured out that like transcription was a thing, and like I downloaded a little like slowdown app on my phone. Just one lunchtime went in, I was like, there's this Borelli Legrand lick on So What that I really want to learn, but I have no idea what he's doing. I'm just going to load it up into the slowdowner and see if I can figure it out, like if I slow it down.
Cool.
And that just sparked the entire thing. And then every day I would transcribe a couple lines during lunch break and recess. And just try and amass as much language as I could throughout those high school years.
No, that's cool, man. I think one thing that stands out to me is, so when you're in college, right? Potentially, I mean, maybe it'll end up being different, but it tends to be the case that you have more time to practice when you're at college than you do when you finish college. So I'm interested, are you going to try and keep up that morning, afternoon, evening routine now or in the next sort of year while you're not at college?
Oh, yeah, I've thought about it. I basically, like, I've reached a point of technique where I can go without practicing all those things and I stay at the same place, basically. I might, like,
Right.
shift slightly, like, it might not be as accurate on some things, particularly, like, sweeps. I guess that's maybe, sweeping is almost the first thing to go, I'd say. And, like, just alternate picking accuracy and sweeping. Probably the first two things for me to kind of disappear, but it's all at a pretty good level where I'm comfortable and I haven't had to practice technical stuff like that for maybe 2 or 3 years now, I reckon.
All right. Cool.
So that, I guess that leads me on to like the other brackets of practice. So transcribing's always been huge. I reckon that took over, transcribing and writing took over transcribing, writing, and just like improvisation practice took over for me during uni, especially second, third, and fourth year. So those are other categories of practice. So we like add technical, transcription, improvisation. So that's over chord changes, new chord progressions, and
Yeah.
just general like loops and stuff. And I guess that includes also a category which I like is my main practice now, which is just like jamming over different grooves, basically.
Cool.
So just loading
Is
up.
that with the Drum Genius app or
Exactly,
Loop Loft
man.
or something?
Yeah, Drum Genius is just all that. So I'll click a random one. Often I go to like, I like checking out all the different like world music beats. So I just click like some kind of African thing and check it out and see how like jazz language fits over that, and if I can play with the rhythmic aspects of it. I don't really like sit down and completely analyze what's going on, like all the different parts, how they're interlocking, but just generally like the groove and the feeling of it. And I'll just sit there for half an hour and just jam out lines to it. So just have like a fun kind of practice, basically. That's how I think of it.
Nice, sweet.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the biggest things is transcription for you then, right? And I can't remember exactly which one it was, but I'm pretty sure the first time I heard you play, it was a transcription of Chris Porter solo.
Yeah.
And it was just absolutely like insane. Like the lines that Chris had played and you had emulated on the guitar was like very, very impressive and like just sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Like how often do you have a big transcription project like a Chris Porter solo?
Not too often, actually.
Or is it usually more like small chunks of like language that you're trying to get down?
Man. Yeah, it's all just small language, and it was like that during high school. So I only really started doing full solos like 4 years ago when I started posting, basically, like 3-4 years ago. But yeah, and before then it was just like I'd isolate just a line over a particular chord that I wanted to learn how to play over, and just internalize that, and then whenever that chord came up in a song, I'd just kind of insert it and see how it sounded, and try and get in and out of it at either end. And that's kind of how I learned to solo over different progressions and build up kind of a language for each chord. Just like have a big bucket of information that I can slot in whenever I hear something.
Yeah.
And that was then.
No,
I guess
good,
I guess it's kind of changed now, and everything's kind of blended together. But
but it's so important to learn language, because it's like, anyway, we won't get into that just yet. One thing I want to ask you about is the hardest transcription you have ever undertaken.
Okay,
What is it?
that's a good question, man.
The most difficult one. Maybe it's a tonal thing, or maybe it's a harmonic, or maybe it's a speed thing. Like, I'm interested.
Yeah, to be a speed thing. So it's either I think it was 2 or 3 choruses that I did of Anthropology by Brad Meldale. That awesome live recording. Of Anthropology, and the solo is absolutely insane. Recommend checking it out.
Yeah.
So ridiculous.
No, I really want to get better at like playing. It's not about playing quicker, but being able to play language quicker, because I don't know, I find sometimes I just trip up over my feet when I try and like kick it up a notch, and I feel like I'm playing more like muscle memory,
Yeah.
It's like I think it takes a while to like really kind of get into playing at that kind of up tempo thing while still improvising, and I think having language down is like just so helpful for that, because I've seen how it helps me.
Yep.
But yeah, that's cool, man. I need to go and check that out because I really love Brad Melder.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane solo. So it's that one, and then Jacob Collier's the Flintstones one.
Nice. Was that a solo? Did you do that all on like solo guitar? Am I right? No, or was that a melody thing?
Yeah, yes. No, it was. I played it with him, like the track, but it was just all guitar, and it was
right. Cool.
Like he did one chorus of melodica solo, and then he did like a trading between his vocal and the melodica, and
Nice.
I tried, like I started that transcription a year before I posted that, and I tried to learn it, but it was too much for me, and I just kind of gave up after a week or something of trying to get even like that first line. I had no idea what to do with it, and then I just gave it a go, like whenever, like 2 weeks before I posted it, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it in 2 weeks. I'm gonna practice nothing else. I'm just gonna smash it out, see if I can get it.
How much time do you think it took you?
I guess it was a couple hours each day, just going through different things. I guess I was doing other stuff because obviously uni was happening, and I had to do stuff with that, write tunes or whatever. But it was kind of 2 weeks of work, probably like 2 or 3 hours a day, just trying to. And I guess getting the speed up was the hardest thing because it's so ridiculously fast. I got up to like 80%. I was like, oh, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to push this any higher than that.
Yeah.
And then so after that, I realized basically with those fast transcriptions, even Brad or Chris, you have to leave out a lot of notes for it to work on guitar. For some reason, the sax and piano, they can do a lot more notes in a quick space like that. So I left out like half the notes within those lines and just like tried to figure out what all the important ones were. And often it's like running up a really fast scale, like a sax or piano can do that really quick. Guitar sometimes like the position and the fingerings are kind of odd. So I just turned it into a sweep, like just an arpeggio. So I'd find what scale it was and just like bring it down to a sweep, because a sweep is quicker.
Abbreviate it for guitar.
Exactly, man. Yeah, to abbreviate a lot in that Jacob one.
Yeah, nice. I remember like there's been a couple of transcriptions I've worked on. I've just been like, all right, all the notes are fine, but it's actually getting up to speed that is just so hard, man. I remember, do you know the solo? I mean, you probably do in Lingus, Snarky Puppy.
Yeah.
I remember transcribing the keyboard solo when it starts to kick into the melody, and it's really nice, kind of interesting. From what I remember, like just a lot of augmented ideas, just over like a.
It's like an E pedal, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, E. And that was cool. I learned a lot, but when it started to like really kick into like 16s and even higher than that, it was like getting that to speed was it was so tricky for me. I think I just gave up after like I don't even know how long, but it was the same like transcribing Coltrane stuff.
Yeah.
Like trying to get into giant steps and like lift some of the ideas in that solo. And it's like a lot of them just kind of repeat the same idea, sort of, but just the speed is so bloody fast, I find. It's like you really just have to get slow and like really kind of work on that, and I guess just work it up in increments. Yeah,
that's what I really did with the Jacob one. But then another just idea that I've always had and I've always applied to practice is just kind of pushing the boundary and just going for it, like trying like twice as fast as what you're intending or something. So just like going above and beyond what you're aiming for. And it's an idea that I got from like an old Sean Lane video. He was kind of huge as well for me in developing just technique and stuff, because his technique is probably the most ferocious I've ever seen on guitar.
Right.
Definitely say.
Sorry, just quick question. When you mean going above and beyond, do you mean like, for example, doing the Jacob Collier transcription at 120%, or do you mean like when you're... Oh, you do mean that? Right, I thought you were meaning like when you're trying to get to that tempo, it's like you need to kind of like in your mind overshoot everything, and then eventually you work up to being at the right place.
Yeah. I guess you could try that too. That might work. But yeah, it was just punching it up heaps fast.
Right.
So I think Jacob Collier, like I tried at 110 and probably 120, as I said, just to see like if I could get that speed up. And then once you do that, like your ears, it's almost like your ears control a lot of it as well, like how fast you can play. Because once you hear it that fast, like the normal tempo doesn't sound as fast anymore. So your ears go, oh, this isn't as much. And then you just try it and you're instantly like way better than what you were before.
Yeah, I have that problem with students quite a lot when I'm teaching them a song or a tune or whatever it may be, and we learn like the harmonic information, and then we slow the track down a bit, and they get used to doing that, and then I put it to full tempo, and they're like, it's so fast, and it's like, well, no, it's not. It's just you've like your ear is in control of that because it's not actually even a fast tune. It's just you need to take your time. But yeah, that's cool. Nice. A lot of like really kind of insightful stuff there. I think it'd be good to wrap it up with like maybe one final question, and it's one that I think I probably know your answer to now based on our conversation. But in fact, there's two things. But the first thing is, what are your thoughts on the argument of all right, you're kind of getting into jazz, and say you're inspired by people like, just say like modern players, right? Who are all definitely inspired by the older stuff. Would you recommend, or what's your what are your thoughts on learning tradition or jumping in where it's at now, and like just running with that?
Yeah, I used to think about this heaps, man, because I was a person who just like, by the artists I mentioned, I just kind of jumped into the modern stuff. Like Chris Potter is very, very modern player. Borelli Legren, Sylvain Luc, like they have strong traditional backgrounds, and I knew that. I understood where they come from, like Django Reinhardt, but I was more attracted to them than the traditional stuff for sure. Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, more interested in listening them to kind of their predecessors. And even with like more like guitarists like Guthrie Govan, I just listened to him and I had no, besides like the tunes are awesome, I didn't really want to learn like a Jimi Hendrix line. I just couldn't bring myself to want to do that, even though I knew how awesome it was, and yeah, I respected it heaps, of course. So I always thought, maybe I'm missing out heaps, and I put a lot of thought into it. I was just like, I was kind of frustrated with myself why I couldn't force myself to sit down and learn some of their lines to put context into the stuff I was learning from Guthrie or Chris. But now I just think like you're going to get the most out of what you're truly interested truly interested in, and what kind of inspires you. You're going to get the most out of that no matter what. So I think it's ultimately best to follow that, those desires, rather than kind of forcing yourself to try and learn something that you're only 50% invested in. You're going to be kind of looking for excuses to not do it, and you're just not going to get the most out of it, really. So I see it as like kind of, besides getting down a very traditional and like foundational material, you're kind of wasting your time, because most often or not, that material is just going to get lost, I reckon. Like you're just not going to remember it because it didn't like give you a spark to begin with, essentially.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how I see it.
I feel you on that, and I think the counter argument is often that, well, you're learning a language here. Say, obviously, music's a language, but jazz is the specific language, and having like say like the good grammar and all that sort of stuff that comes from learning how to use the language correctly and where it's come from. And I guess it's similar to like understanding a bit of Latin if you speak English in a way. But then I don't know, I think it's an interesting topic for discussion, and I don't have a personal answer because I don't think I've been as invested in it as some of the other people I speak to. But I definitely know that right now I'm more attracted to the sound of Mike Marino than if I was to go back and I don't know, study some some other stuff that I wasn't attracted to. It's like it would feel like a bit of a slog, and I think it's definitely good advice to like follow your ear, and wherever that's going to take you, just hang out with that for a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess like your ear's always changing as well. So if you might be into that for a while, like the more modern stuff, but then like you might just get a spark of wanting to know what kind of language enforce their kind of language as well. So you want to get back to the tradition, which I found, like I had a huge kind of Django period and Charlie Parker as well. Listen to them heaps, but it was always after the more modern players. Michael Brecker, another big one. Like I was just wanted to learn his language. I didn't want to learn anybody else for a long time. I don't know.
Cool, nice. All right, so topping it off, advice for young musicians. All right, you're obviously young yourself, and I mean we're both pretty young, but someone like maybe getting into jazz or like starting to get into improvised music. What's your advice?
Ooh, it's so hard without knowing like a person's goal. I guess. Without the goal, it's hard to say. But I guess like the biggest things that have helped me in my journey, like of learning how to improvise, understand tunes, is probably transcription. I reckon was the biggest thing for me, and I recommend everybody just getting into it and picking their favorite line from their favorite song and learning it, and then not just kind of learning it, but also understanding how it relates to what music theory you know at that given time, and see if you can learn more from it and figure out what chord it's going over, what chords it's connecting or whatever, and then beyond that kind of apply it to different chords. So like if a line's a C major line, try it out in like E minor or try it out in A minor and see how it sounds, F major. And then also just like try it out in a completely different key. So if it's a C major line, try it out in B major, like over a B major chord, and see if you can play that line and then land in B major. You might get like a really wild outside sound. Or like C major.
So you mean like take the C major line, play it in C over B?
Yeah. Just.
I thought you were going for the whole 12 key thing there of like actually move the. But yeah, that's cool.
I guess that's it. Yeah, that's another one. Just getting it through the keys. And on guitar, I guess there's 4 positions you can do most lines in. If you're thinking they're going across 3 strings, you have your 6th string position, 5th string, 4th string, and 3rd string positions for most lines. So just understanding those 4 positions of each thing and figuring out like what kind of fingering works best for you. Like that's kind of a reason why I don't transcribe too many guitarists. It's because I kind of want to follow their fingering, but it often doesn't really work for me. So I prefer transcribing sax players because I can make my own fingering completely and try about like 3 or 4 different ones and see which ones feel better. So I reckon that, for young musos wanting to learn to improvise better and understand theory and tunes, transcription. And then I guess also improvisation, a huge tool that's helped me is just like single chord backing tracks. So just jamming over like an awesome groove, just one chord and just going for it and seeing, I think, another huge one related to that is actually playing like a continuous line, because often like people just play in phrases, but like if you learn how to string like this huge line together that doesn't stop for like a minute, you like connect like 5 or 6 different pieces of transcribed material together, or like even more. I mean, it's going to be a lot more if it's a whole minute line. And then you start to figure out like how you can transition between different transcribed pieces of information and how they all link together, because that fretboard isn't that vast once you start to do that, I guess. Like it just opens up the fretboard completely. You start to see how they connect, what notes are the same. You might like a certain little fingering thing is in one lick and it's also in another lick, so you can like, it's like train tracks, like they can cross over at that point and stuff like that. And I guess it's really fun. You just start slow, like it crotchets, run through, and then you might try like 8ths, 16ths, and like triplets, same kind of thing, just through the different subdivisions over that 1-chord groove. I started doing that maybe 2 years ago now, with an awesome saxophone teacher called Mike Rivet. At the con, I had him for a year and a half. And that like just opened up the door completely for outside playing, because once you start to play in a key, you start to introduce outside ideas. Like you might be playing C minor, doing kind of C minor pentatonic stuff, and then you might say like, okay, I'm going to add a D major triad into that C minor pentatonic, but every now and then I have 3 notes, D, A, and F sharp, that I can slip in and see how they sound over C minor as well. And you just do that for all like the arpeggios. And that's just
Sweet.
fun way of practicing.
Yeah, man. No, that's tons of stuff to check out for sure. So, it's been great talking to you, man.
It's been a pleasure.
Hope
and
you had
thanks for having
fun.
me on.
And have fun at NAMM, right?
Thanks so much, man. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
That concludes episode 4 of Sitting In. I hope you enjoyed that. I really did. It's always nice to chat to other musicians about what they're up to and kind of how they're getting around practicing and all that kind of stuff. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to support what I'm doing, teespring.com/sitting-in-podcast. I'll see you next week.